The night sky above Cambridge University's physics department was unusually clear, stars scattered like diamonds across black velvet. Zara Mitchell adjusted the university telescope with practiced hands, her breath fogging slightly in the observatory's cool air. At 28, she was the youngest researcher to lead the department's exoplanet discovery program, her work on gravitational microlensing already changing how astronomers searched for planets beyond our solar system. Almost there, she murmured to herself, dark curls escaping her messy bun as she focused on calibrating the equipment. Her fingers, delicate yet strong from years of precision work, made minute adjustments to the alignment. Her phone vibrated against the metal desk, Dominic finally returning her calls. She had news that couldn't wait, news that had left her alternately elated and terrified for the past 3 days. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, his message read. Finishing an investor call. Zara smiled despite her nerves. Dominic Wells was always finishing an investor call. As the founder and CEO of Quantum Leap Technologies, he lived in a perpetual hurricane of meetings, development deadlines, and funding rounds. Their relationship had weathered 3 years of this chaos, her astronomical research and his meteoric rise in quantum computing somehow aligning despite their demanding schedules. The engagement ring on her finger caught the moonlight as she stepped back from the telescope. 6 months ago, he'd proposed beneath this same observatory dome, arranging for the automated system to project the constellation Andromeda across the ceiling while he knelt before her. She'd cried, overwhelmed by joy and certainty that they were creating something rare together, a partnership of equals, minds and hearts in orbit around each other. Now she pressed a hand to her still flat stomach. How would he react to their unexpected celestial visitor? Dominic arrived exactly 30 minutes later, his tall frame filling the doorway of the observatory. At 34, he cut an imposing figure, sharp jawline, intense gray eyes, and the confident posture of someone accustomed to commanding attention. His bespoke suit seemed out of place among the academic surroundings, but that was Dominic, always slightly apart from any world he inhabited except his own. "There's my brilliant stargazer," he said, crossing to kiss her. His lips were cool from the night air, his cologne expensive and subtle. "Sorry about the delay. The Series C is getting complicated." Zara leaned into his embrace, savoring the solid warmth of him. "It's fine. I've been busy with the new exoplanet data anyway. Find anything remarkable up there tonight?" He glanced toward the dome's opening where stars continued their ancient patterns, oblivious to human concerns. "Actually, I found something remarkable down here," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. She took his hand, guiding it to rest against her abdomen. "We're going to have a baby." The silence that followed seemed to expand like the universe itself, vast, cold, and suddenly frightening. Dominic's expression shifted from confusion to shock, to something Zara couldn't quite name but instantly feared. He withdrew his hand as if burned. "That's impossible," he said finally. "We've always been careful." Apparently not careful enough. She attempted a smile that faltered under his hardening gaze. "I know it's unexpected, but unexpected?" His laugh held no humor. "Zara, we're 3 months from the biggest IPO in quantum computing history. My entire board is watching my every move. The stability of my leadership is the cornerstone of our valuation." She stepped back, confusion clouding her features. "I don't understand what that has to do with our baby." "Everything has to do with everything in my position." He raked fingers through his perfectly styled dark hair, disarranging it for perhaps the first time since she'd known him. The timing couldn't be worse. "We need to discuss options." The word hung between them like a knife. Zara wrapped her arms protectively around her middle, suddenly cold despite the observatory's climate control. "There's nothing to discuss. I'm keeping this baby, Dominic." His expression shifted to one she recognized from boardroom videos she'd watched, the calculating look he wore when recalibrating a negotiation strategy. It was the first time that expression had ever been directed at her. "Be reasonable, Zara. We're not ready for this. Your research is at a critical stage. My company is about to go public. We always said children would come later after we'd accomplished our goals." "Plans change," she said softly. "Sometimes the universe has its own timeline." "Don't give me astronomical metaphors right now," he snapped, pacing the small circular space. "This is reality. Hard practical reality." The man before her seemed suddenly like a stranger wearing her fiancé's face. Had he always been this cold, this calculating, and she'd simply failed to see it? What are you saying, Dominic? He stopped pacing, his decision apparently made. I'm saying I can't do this, not now. Maybe not ever. He gestured vaguely toward her stomach. This would derail everything I've built. This is a child, Zara whispered, tears finally spilling onto her cheeks. Our child. Dominic's expression remained impassive. I've spent 10 years building Quantum Leap from nothing. Every waking moment dedicated to creating something that will change the world. I can't throw that away for an accident. The word struck her physically, making her flinch. In that moment, the stars above seemed to dim, the universe contracting to this single devastating point in time. I think you should leave, she said, her voice remarkably steady despite the earthquake dismantling her world. Zara, be reasonable. Get out. The force of her voice surprised them both. If this child is just an inconvenient accident to you, then you're not the man I thought you were. Dominic studied her for a long moment, as if weighing final calculations. Then he removed an envelope from his jacket pocket and placed it on her desk. I had our lawyer draw these up when you called. Release of parental rights, a settlement that should cover expenses. He placed his key to her apartment beside the envelope. I'm sorry it turned out this way. As he walked toward the door, Zara found her voice one last time. Dominic. He turned, his expression guarded. Someday you'll realize what you threw away tonight. And all your quantum computers and billions won't fill the emptiness. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing as he walked out of the observatory and her life. Alone beneath the indifferent stars, Zara placed both hands on her abdomen. It's just you and me now, little one, she whispered to the life growing inside her. But don't worry. You're made of stardust, and so am I. We're stronger than he knows. Outside, a meteor streaked across the Cambridge sky, a falling star marking the end of one life and the beginning of another. The morning sickness came with cruel irony, always at sunset, when the day's light faded and Zara's loneliness felt most acute. 6 weeks after Dominic's departure, she knelt on her bathroom floor, trembling as another wave of nausea passed. The cool tiles pressed against her forehead offered minimal relief. Her tiny campus apartment felt cavernous now. The spaces once filled with Dominic's presence, his laptop on the kitchen counter, his running shoes by the door, his theoretical physics books intermingled with her astronomy texts, were now empty wounds. She had packed his remaining items into a box and left it with his doorman, unable to face him again. The settlement check remained undeposited, a poisoned offering she couldn't bring herself to touch despite her dwindling savings. Her academic stipend barely covered rent, and the university's health insurance would only stretch so far. A knock at her door startled her. She rinsed her mouth, smoothed her rumpled shirt, and answered to find Dr. Lyra Novak standing in her hallway, silver hair framing a face lined with experience and intelligence. You missed the department meeting, Lyra said without preamble, studying Zara with sharp green eyes that missed nothing, and yesterday's lab session. That's not like you. Zara stepped back, allowing her mentor inside. I've been unwell. Lyra set down her worn leather satchel and turned to face her former student. At 62, she was a legend in astronomical circles, the first woman to identify a binary star system with an exoplanet capable of supporting life. Her brilliance was matched only by her notorious impatience with academic politics and bureaucracy. Morning sickness doesn't typically last all day, she observed casually, revealing how much she already knew. Tea helps. Ginger with honey. Sit down before you fall down. Zara complied, too exhausted to pretend. How did you know? Lyra busied herself in the kitchen, familiar with the space from previous visits. I've known you since you were a brilliant but painfully shy undergraduate. You've never missed a day of research in 7 years. The kettle whistled. Also, you've been subconsciously resting your hand on your abdomen whenever you think no one's looking. The hot tea soothed Zara's raw throat. I haven't told the department yet. And the father? Zara's silence was answer enough. Lyra's expression hardened. Dominic Wells. I read about the Quantum Leap IPO announcement. Convenient timing for him to suddenly become unencumbered. He made his choice, Zara said quietly. His company matters more than us. Men like that don't change, Lyra said, her voice softening with rare compassion. I know, I almost married one 40 years ago. Zara looked up in surprise. Her mentor never discussed personal configuration, like a nebula after a supernova. She reached into her satchel and extracted a folder. I've been offered directorship of the Halley Observatory in Colorado. High altitude, minimal light pollution, state-of-the-art equipment funded by private grants instead of fickle university politics. I start next month. She slid the folder across the table. I want you to come as my research partner. Zara opened the folder with shaking hands. The position description outlined housing, salary, and research opportunities that far surpassed her current situation. Why me? There are more established researchers, none with your intuition for exoplanetary formation, Lyra interrupted. Besides, the altitude and isolation tend to discourage those who aren't truly dedicated. The observatory needs someone who sees the stars as more than research subjects. Her keen eyes softened. Someone who understands that even in vast emptiness, new life finds a way to form. That night after Lyra left, Zara stood on her small balcony watching the Cambridge sky. Light pollution obscured all but the brightest stars, yet she knew they were there. Countless worlds continuing their cosmic dance whether observed or not. She thought of Dominic, probably working late in his glass-walled office, surrounded by equations and ambition, but nothing alive, nothing growing. For the first time since he'd walked away, she felt something beyond pain. A stirring of possibility, a sense that the universe hadn't abandoned her after all. The next morning she deposited the settlement check. Not because she forgave Dominic, but because the money belonged to her child now, a resource to build a future Dominic would never be part of. Then she called Lyra and accepted the position. 6 weeks later, she stood at the entrance to Halley Observatory, perched on a Colorado mountainside at 9,000 feet. The thin air made her slightly dizzy, or perhaps it was the pregnancy, now beginning to show beneath her sweater. The massive dome gleamed silver against the blue sky surrounded by pine forests and endless horizons. "Welcome to your new home," Lyra said, handing her a set of keys. "The universe awaits." As if in response, Zara felt her baby move for the first time, a flutter like distant stars pulsing in the darkness. She smiled, placing her palm against the small but definite curve of her stomach. "We're home," she whispered to her child. "Let's rewrite our story among the stars." Dawn at the Halley Observatory painted the mountain peaks gold, the early light filtering through the large windows of the cabin Zara now called home. At 3 years old, Nova Mitchell was already developing her mother's fascination with the sky, her small fingers tracing constellations in picture books before she could properly speak. "Mommy, up!" Nova demanded, her dark curls wild from sleep, her gray eyes so like her father's, bright with morning energy. Zara lifted her daughter, marveling as always at how someone so small could contain so much life. "Telescope today?" Nova asked hopefully, already familiar with the rhythm of their lives. Mornings in the cabin, afternoons in the observatory where she played in the special corner Lyra had set up, filled with astronomy-themed toys and books. "Yes, little star. We're mapping a new exoplanet today," Zara explained, helping Nova into tiny jeans and a sweater emblazoned with the phases of the moon. "One that might have oceans like Earth. With fishes?" Nova's eyes widened. "Maybe. That's what science helps us discover." Zara brushed her daughter's hair, thinking how different their lives were from what she'd once imagined. No urban apartment, no prestigious university setting, no Dominic. Instead, they had mountain air, a close-knit community of scientists, and freedom. The isolation that might have crushed someone else had instead allowed Zara to flourish, her research on protoplanetary disks around young stars gaining attention in the scientific community. The paper she would present at next month's International Astrophysics Conference in Vienna was already generating buzz. "Dr. Mitchell, you're needed in the main observatory," came a voice through the intercom. "The data from last night's observation has finished processing." Zara smiled at the formal title she'd earned last year after completing her doctorate remotely. "Coming, Dr. Novak, I'm bringing my assistant." Nova giggled, familiar with the joke. At the observatory, Lyra waited by the main computer bank, her silver hair now fully white but her energy undiminished. "Look at this," she said without preamble, gesturing to the screen. Your gravitational microlensing theory was correct. We've identified 3 more Earth-like planets in the habitable zone. Zara studied the data, excitement building as she recognized the pattern her algorithms had predicted. The stellar formation model worked. We can now identify planetary systems in their infancy with 87% accuracy. She squeezed Nova's hand. We're seeing baby planets, just like I saw you before you were born. Nova, accustomed to her mother's scientific explanations, nodded solemnly, before wandering to her play corner, under the watchful eye of the observatory's administrative assistant. The Vienna Conference Committee called, Lyra mentioned, adjusting the telescope controls. They've moved your presentation to the keynote slot. Apparently having revolutionized early planetary detection methods earns you top billing. Zara's heart skipped. Keynote? But that's usually reserved for established researchers with decades of experience? Lyra finished with a rare smile. Like me? Well, I had my time. Now it's yours. She handed Zara a tablet with the conference schedule. You've earned this, Zara. Your work is changing how we understand cosmic beginnings. As she scrolled through the program, a familiar name stopped her cold. Dominic Wells, presenting on quantum computing applications in astronomical data processing. Did you know? She asked quietly. Lyra's expression confirmed she had. Science is a small world, especially at the intersection of our fields. I thought you should be prepared. Zara nodded, surprising herself with her own calm. 3 years ago, seeing Dominic's name would have shattered her. Now it was merely a ripple in her otherwise steady life. I've moved on, she said simply, turning back to the data that mattered, the world she was discovering, not the one she'd left behind. That evening, after Nova was asleep, Zara sat on her cabin porch beneath a sky ablaze with stars. Her laptop displayed the email she'd been composing for an hour, addressing the practical matter she could no longer avoid. Dear Mr. Wells, she typed, keeping it formal and detached. I note that we will both be presenting at the Vienna conference next month. As we are likely to encounter each other, I felt it appropriate to inform you that our daughter Nova is now 3 years old. While you legally relinquished parental rights, I believe in transparency. I expect nothing from you, nor do I seek to disrupt your life. This is merely information you may wish to have. She attached a recent photo of Nova, not for Dominic's benefit but because someday her daughter might ask if her father had ever known of her existence. Zara wanted to be able to answer truthfully. After sending the email, she looked up at the vast spray of the Milky Way. In astronomical terms, 3 years was less than an eye blink. Stars formed over millions of years, galaxies over billions. Yet in those 3 years, she had transformed. From a broken, abandoned woman into something new. A scientist whose work was changing her field. A mother whose daughter thrived. A person complete in herself. Her phone chimed with an incoming message. Not from Dominic, but from the American Astronomical Society, confirming her nomination for their Emerging Scientist Award. Another recognition she hadn't sought but had earned through relentless work and insight. Whatever happened in Vienna, she would face it standing in her own light, not in Dominic's shadow. 2,000 miles away, in his penthouse overlooking San Francisco Bay, Dominic Wells stared at the email that had just arrived, and the face of a child he had never allowed himself to imagine. The Vienna International Conference Center hummed with the energy of 2,000 of the world's leading scientists gathered under one roof. Zara adjusted her navy blue dress, simple but elegant with subtle silver threading that reminded her of starlight, and checked her reflection in the hotel elevator's mirrored wall. At 31, she looked different from the woman Dominic had left. More confident, her posture straight, her eyes clear and focused. Lyra stood beside her, resplendent in her trademark silver pantsuit. Ready to change how the world understands stellar formation? As ready as I'll be, Zara replied, tucking an errant curl behind her ear. She'd left Nova with Lyra's daughter, who had flown in specifically to help. The separation anxiety was real, but this moment was too important to miss. The keynote presentation hall was packed beyond capacity, with attendees standing along the walls. Zara recognized faces from journals and research papers. Legends in her field now gathered to hear her speak. As she was introduced, the applause was respectful but curious. Many still wondered how an obscure researcher from a remote observatory had made such groundbreaking discoveries. For the next 45 minutes, she lost herself in the science, explaining how her algorithm identified planetary formation in stellar nurseries, previously thought too chaotic to map. Her visualizations drew gasps when they revealed planetary systems taking shape in real time, challenging established theories of cosmic development. In conclusion, she said, displaying the final slide, we are now able to witness the birth of worlds, not just their maturity. This changes everything about how we search for habitable planets and understand our own solar system's origins. The applause was immediate and thunderous. Questions came rapid-fire, challenging but engaged. Zara fielded each with calm precision, her years of isolated research evident in her thorough command of the material. As the session ended, she was surrounded by colleagues offering congratulations and research opportunities. Through the crowd, she caught a glimpse of a tall figure at the back of the hall, Dominic, watching with an unreadable expression before disappearing through the exit. The encounter she had dreaded had passed in an instant, without words. Somehow that felt appropriate. The conference gala that evening transformed the historic Hofburg Palace into a glittering celebration of scientific achievement. Under crystal chandeliers, researchers who spent their days in observatory darkness or hunched over computers now mingled in formal wear, discussing cosmological constants over champagne. Zara entered alone, Lyra having begged off with claims of jet lag. She suspected her mentor was deliberately forcing her to stand independently in the spotlight. The midnight blue gown she wore, a splurge she justified as professional investment, caught the light as she moved through the crowd. Accepting congratulations from newfound colleagues, Dr. Mitchell. The voice behind her was instantly recognizable, though she hadn't heard it in over 3 years. Your keynote was extraordinary. She turned to face Dominic Wells, who looked almost exactly as she remembered, immaculate in a tuxedo, confident posture, those penetrating gray eyes. The eyes he had passed to Nova. Thank you, she replied, proud of how steady her voice remained. Your quantum processing presentation tomorrow sounds intriguing. I plan to attend. The polite fiction that they were merely professional acquaintances stretched between them, fragile but necessary in this public setting. Would you mind if we spoke privately? He asked, gesturing toward the terrace doors. There's something I need to say. Every instinct warned against isolating herself with the man who had shattered her world, yet curiosity won out. They found a quiet corner of the terrace overlooking Vienna's lights, reminiscent of stars against the night sky. Nova looks like you, he said finally, breaking the tense silence. In the photo you sent, she has your smile. But your eyes, Zara replied automatically, and your stubbornness, though you wouldn't know that. Dominic's expression tightened. I deserve that. This isn't about what you deserve, she said, surprised by her own composure. It's simply fact. You made your choice 3 years ago. A choice I've questioned every day since the Quantum Leap IPO, he admitted, his usually confident voice hesitant. We went public at 8 times our projected valuation. Everything I sacrificed for, everything you sacrificed us for, she corrected. Yes. He didn't deny it. I became the success I always wanted, and discovered it was hollow. He turned to face her directly. Watching you today, the brilliance, the confidence, I realized what I gave up wasn't just a child, but you. The person you've become. Zara studied him, searching for the manipulation she had once been blind to. Instead, she found something unexpected. Genuine regret in eyes that had once calculated everything in terms of advantage. I'm not seeking forgiveness, he continued when she remained silent. I'm not even seeking a second chance. I just wanted you to know that I recognize my mistake. The biggest of my life. The admission hung between them, sincere but insufficient against the weight of his absence. What do you want, Dominic? Why this conversation now? He hesitated, uncharacteristically uncertain. I'd like to meet her. Once, on your terms, with whatever boundaries you set. I don't expect parental rights or recognition. I just want to see her. To know her, even if it's just for an hour. The request was the one thing Zara hadn't prepared herself to hear. She had imagined accusations, Explanations, even apologies, but not this humble petition from a man who had never asked for anything he couldn't demand. "I need to think about it," she said finally. "This isn't about you or me. It's about what's best for Nova." "Of course," he agreed immediately. "You're her mother. You decide." The simple acknowledgement of her authority, so different from the controlling man she'd known, caught her off guard. "I'll let you know before the conference ends," she promised, already turning to leave, needing space to process this unexpected development. "Zara," he called softly after her, "for what it's worth, I'm proud of you. What you've accomplished, it's remarkable." She paused, looking back over her shoulder. "I didn't do it to impress you, Dominic. I did it despite you." With that truth between them, she returned to the gala, her mind already racing ahead to the decision she now faced, whether to allow the man who had abandoned them both into her daughter's life, even for a moment. The decision came to Zara in the pre-dawn hours, as the most important realizations often did. She sat at her hotel window watching Vienna emerge from darkness, thinking of Nova, how her daughter asked questions about everything, especially the stars, always seeking to understand the world around her. Someday, Nova would ask about her father. Zara had prepared honest, age-appropriate answers for when that day came. But now she faced a different question. Would knowing her father even briefly give Nova something valuable, or merely open wounds better left sealed? Her phone showed a text from the babysitter, a photo of Nova sleeping, curled around her favorite stuffed star. The sight centered Zara, reminding her that whatever cosmic forces had brought her to this moment, her daughter's well-being was the only constellation worth navigating by. She made the call before she could reconsider. Halley Observatory Celestial Viewing Platform. 1 hour after tomorrow's closing session, she told Dominic when he answered, his voice rough with sleep. 10 minutes. That's all. And if I sense any disruption to her emotional state, it ends immediately. His agreement was immediate and without conditions. The following evening, Zara stood on the outdoor observation deck of the historic Viennese Observatory, where the conference's closing reception was being held. Nova explored nearby, delighted by the small telescope set up for guests, her blue dress with silver stars twirling as she spun beneath actual stars now emerging in the twilight sky. "Mommy, look, I found Jupiter," she called, her excitement drawing smiles from nearby astronomers charmed by her precocious knowledge. Dominic appeared at the entrance to the platform, hesitating when he saw them. Gone was the commanding CEO presence. In its place stood a man visibly uncertain of his welcome. He approached slowly, stopping several feet away as if afraid to disturb the scene before him. "Nova," Zara called gently, "there's someone I'd like you to meet." The child skipped over, studying the stranger with curious gray eyes so like his own. "This is Dr. Wells," Zara said, using the formal title deliberately. "He's a scientist who works with special computers that help astronomers like us." Nova, never shy, looked up at Dominic. "Do your computers see black holes?" "Mommy says they're invisible, but we know they're there because of mathematics." Dominic knelt to her level, visibly affected by this first direct encounter with his daughter. "That's exactly right. My computers help find things we can't see directly." His voice was soft, almost reverent. "Your mother is very smart to teach you about black holes already." "I'm going to be an astronaut-astronomer," Nova announced with the certainty only a 3-year-old could possess. "I want to see the stars up close." "I have no doubt you will," Dominic replied, his composure slipping as he took in every detail of her face, the determined chin, the curious eyes, the boundless energy. For 10 precious minutes, Nova chattered about her favorite constellations while Dominic listened with genuine interest, asking questions that revealed his own knowledge of astronomy had deepened, perhaps in unconscious preparation for this moment. When Zara gently indicated their time was ending, Dominic reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. "I brought something for you," he told Nova, glancing at Zara for permission before continuing. "It's a special compass that works using the stars instead of magnets. So even when you can't see where you're going, the stars will help guide you home." Nova accepted the gift with delight, immediately examining its intricate mechanisms. "Thank you, Dr. Wells. I'll use it on my space explorations." "Time to find Lyra," Zara said, naming both the constellation and her mentor. She promised to show you the observatory's big telescope, remember? Nova nodded eagerly, then surprised both adults by spontaneously hugging Dominic's legs. Bye, Dr. Wells. I hope your computers find lots of black holes. As she skipped ahead to where Lyra waited at the platform's edge, Dominic stood frozen, overcome by the simple gesture of affection he had done nothing to earn. Thank you, he said quietly to Zara. For this gift I don't deserve. It wasn't for you, she replied honestly. It was for her. Someday she'll have questions, and now I can tell her she met you once, that you were kind and respectful. Dominic nodded, understanding the boundaries being set. She's extraordinary. Zara, a perfect reflection of her mother. The compliment, sincerely offered, hung between them as the stars brightened overhead. My company is establishing a research foundation, he said after a moment. Funding for promising scientists in astronomy and quantum physics. No strings attached, no corporate control of findings, pure research. He hesitated. I'd like to name it after her. The Nova Foundation. Zara considered the offer, searching for hidden manipulation but finding only genuine desire for some connection, some contribution to the daughter he would never raise. On one condition, she finally said, the foundation must include substantial scholarships for single parents in STEM, particularly mothers. Done, he agreed without hesitation. I'll have the papers drawn up immediately. Their conversation was interrupted by Nova's delighted squeal as Lyra showed her something through the telescope. The sound drew Zara like gravity, pulling her back to the center of her universe. I should go, she said, already moving toward her daughter. Zara. Dominic called softly. When she turned, he asked the question that clearly haunted him. Are you happy, truly? She considered the man she had once loved, now a stranger connected to her only through shared DNA in their child and memories of a life discarded. In another reality, perhaps they would have married, raised Nova together, balanced ambition with family. But that parallel universe had collapsed the moment he chose his company over their child. I'm more than happy, she answered truthfully. I'm complete. Something in her certainty seemed to release him. He nodded once, accepting both her answer and the finality it represented. As she rejoined Nova and Lyra, Zara felt Dominic's presence recede, returning to his world of quantum algorithms and corporate success. Their orbits had intersected briefly, then continued on their separate paths, a cosmic encounter that changed trajectories but didn't bind them together.